Oh, hey Bob.
Hey,
Hey.
I've
Uh,
got my daughter here, technical wizard,
Amazing.
sorting me out. How are
Oh,
you?
yes, very well, thank you. How are you doing?
Yeah, not bad. Yeah.
Excellent. Looking lovely in your kitchen, is that?
Well, it is actually. Yeah, it's part of the kitchen. I got very specific instructions from Kate, my wife, where I was.
What to not to say anything particularly?
Well, not to say anything inappropriate, and
Yeah.
also where to put the my Kate, my wife, is so she's brilliant with interiors and all that sort of stuff, and she loves it. She absolutely loves it, and we have a very comfortable house. It's very kind of homely, but I wasn't allowed to be in my office, which is a complete mess.
I see. Gosh, well, thank you for giving us an insight into your incredible. Well, it looks impeccable and very clean and very well looked after, should we say?
Well, I'd be delighted to know that. So
Amazing.
how are you doing?
Oh, well, yeah, I'm doing fine, thank you very much. You know, I mean, as fine as one can be doing in these circumstances. Um, I'm in the flat in London with Vic, and we're making the most of the situation. I think, you know, Vic is also a singer, so we are kind of using the time to, well, I'm certainly trying to be as productive as possible. I'm currently revising all my Japanese, which is something I've been meaning to do for years,
Yeah.
which is bringing me lots of pleasure. But yeah, in terms of the you know, the work situation, obviously we're not doing any concerts at the moment, but we are, you know, me and the guys were meeting on Skype and Zoom, sort of maybe 3 or 4 times a week, just to touch base about things, even just to catch up is really nice and important actually to reach out and communicate with other people. And we're starting to plan ahead. So for the 2022 season, looking to the various projects that we're hoping to do and how, you know, the recording timelines and all this kind of stuff. So trying to stay positive. Yeah, I'm sort of viewing it as a bit of a sabbatical of sorts, weirdly.
Yeah. How's it feel not using your voice? I mean, presumably you are a bit, but you know, that's the tricky one, isn't it? Because that's your identity to a certain extent. That's
Well, it's funny you should ask, because I've been doing quite a lot of piano practice and a bit of violin practice as well. And my dad keeps saying, shouldn't you be doing some singing practice as well? And it's almost as if, I don't think this is the case, but because obviously normally it's such an intensive amount of sort of vocal usage of the voice. I don't know. I'm sort of having just a few weeks of not singing too much, and then my plan is to go back over my singing lessons that I have fairly regularly, go through the recordings of those, and actually start to do some proper practice. But I've kind of felt like I've actually naturally just, you know, I've been trying to listen to what my body and my brain kind of requires at this point in time, in this, you know, in this cessation of normal activity. And yeah, it feels like singing is not right at the top immediately, so I think I'll naturally come back into it after a while. It doesn't feel, you know, in fact, Vic and I were, Vic's pretty good on the keys, so we sang, you know, the Sally Gardens the other day for just a private video recording for Dad, and it was nice just to, you know, sing that wonderful melody. But haven't really been using the voice much. Yeah.
and it's also difficult in the environment you're in as well. Sometimes, isn't it? You don't want to disturb people, and you don't want to.
Well, there is that, you know, especially in an urban flat. In fact, my architect friend, Claudia, she was saying that it's strange because when you're sort of forced in a period of time to be creative, it's sort of quite difficult to. Whereas when you're kind of just in your normal routine, it's much easier to let the creative juices flow. I mean, you must experience this all the time as a composer. I mean, what's it like for you?
Well, you're right, because actually, you know, being a composer, there's an element of self-isolation about that. I mean, I'm very, as I think I've told you before, I have a very, very strict routine with the way I work. So I'm quite good at that at home. But the thing is, you realise how much you need people. And that's the reality. We need people very badly because that stimulus is part of the way that the process actually works. And for me, because I like people and I like being with people, I find that very, very hard. I find it hard when I get to the supermarket and I can't go close to people or see friends in the street. We live in a village, so it's very, very rural here, and it's lovely actually, and we feel very blessed from that point of view because we can go out. We've got fantastic fields around us. We've got a garden, and we've got, all that stuff. But when you see friends in the street, one of my very best friends lives just around the corner. He's someone I go out to breakfast with fairly regularly, and we chew the fat,
Amazing.
But I can't go near him, and I find that normally we hug. Now, I can't bear that. I like touch.
Yeah.
And that's quite important. I think the way that you feel about what you're doing with your work, and I think it's going to be a challenge for us all when it's finished, because people aren't going to rush back to being together again, and that's going to be a challenge for performers, I think, for us all who involve with people.
Yeah. So do you find that, just on your point about being a composer means that you're naturally quite disciplined about self-isolation of sorts when you need to be, does that mean that your composing work is in fact hasn't been altered too much or too badly, but it's more that everything else around your kind of life has changed drastically?
Yeah, no, I'm composing quite prolifically at the moment because it's therapy, as well as keeping the mind really working, and also it's important to think forwards, as I know you will be doing. That's what our work entails. You've got to keep positive. You've got to keep pushing forward with ideas. I had a well, not as much as you, but I had 5 big trips till August, including the World Choir Symposium in Auckland, which of course has been cancelled. A big trip to Japan, and that's been cancelled, that festival, which is a real blow because they've worked so hard and there were such a lot of people involved. But in general, things have been rescheduled, but onto a future date, which is great. But you think it's going to feel different.
Yeah.
And I think we have to maybe alter our own discourse in the way that we think about what we do and everything like that. I'm thinking about that quite a lot, actually, because the world needs music big time, and it needs singing because we need that thing of being together, and that's what it is. It's about human contact. I think that's going to be a challenge, but I think we're going to have to, it's very important to take that forward. And
do you is the kind of the compositional element of what you do, is that being affected at all by the kind of the subject matter or the kind of the theme of self-isolation? We've been talking in the group a little bit about potentially once the lockdown's lifted and we're in that kind of funny kind of phase of coming back out into society, but also still being have a lid being put on things or kept on things, to potentially have kind of at the ready a program which is based on perhaps music which has been written by composers either in isolation or coming out of isolation. We're talking about those kind of ideas, brainwaving in a way. But are you composing in along those lines as well?
Not consciously. I mean, the project I'm doing at the moment is it's a diversity-based project, and so there's a lot of things that deal with the human condition. The word's absolutely brilliant, and it talks about quite personal feelings, and I think you find that when you look at what people have written, a lot of it can be attached to the kind of the discourse of of isolation and that feeling. But my feeling generally is that the context of being alone is something we all experience anyway. But I think when we want to articulate it in the future, maybe we'll want to be thinking about different things. I think possibly we'll need to think about energy. I love the virtual choir thing. I think it's brilliant, but it's not us together.
Yeah.
And I think when you're together with someone, you have a different chemical reaction when you're with someone personally. And I think that I'd like to feel it's a burst of energy. I think we'll need energy somehow. And I think it's slightly, maybe I'm off key here, but it's very easy to be a bit self-indulgent, I think, with these kind of feelings. I think we have to think, right, now we've got to move forward, because without that, we're in trouble, really. And I think I'm not personally being one to look at the self-indulgence aspect from a musical creative point of view. I'd rather deal with a kind of human energy that's outward looking. So that would be my feeling about it.
Amazing.
Sometimes we look to express things that people say, yeah, I already know that. Come on, move on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, when this is, people are talking about sort of post-lockdown, there being all of a sudden a big wave of celebration, and particularly in the arts and culture. Is that something that you anticipate as well, and sort of, is that something that's in your sight line in terms of your musical output?
Not completely. I've got a sequence of pieces that I've got to write that are already scheduled. So I've got to do that. So I'm sticking with that schedule. I'm kind of the thing I'm thinking about. I have a daughter, by the way, who's an A&E doctor, and her partner is also, he's a doctor in Northwick Park Hospital in Wembley, one of the biggest hospitals in Europe, actually. And they are working unbelievably hard, and I'm thinking more of how this is going to change us in how we feel about equality and also about respecting what people do that we didn't perhaps think of before. It might. I think the whole story of equality and thinking about the things that we really value. I mean, just a year ago, we were talking about the NHS and thinking about it a lot of the argument was very much that things were going to move in a different direction. Now, I think that, and hopefully people will realise what that means to us, and also what a national broadcasting service means to us, and so things like that, and that's what I'm thinking about more. And I think in a way that will reflect in the way we feel about our music making. I hope so, because I'm getting older, and I have younger children, and I see them working, and I see their lives, and they have got a chance, in a way, to show the possibilities of their life in a slightly different way, maybe than my generation did. And I would like to see that. And I think that will also impact on arts and culture and on what we do big time.
I was going to say, one of my hopes is, just from the various articles and things I've been reading online, and of course you always have to be careful as to, the sourcing of that, but is that, at this time, particularly music and arts and even sport are being looked to as things which are helping people to get through and get by this period. And of course, in the education system, not to go too much into this topic, but in the education system in the UK, those are perhaps some of the areas that are being neglected a little bit. So hopefully there might be some reform as a result of this whole sort of crisis. And as you're saying, kind of change for good would be nice.
It's made people think a great deal, and I think it will make people think, because I think we've got a way to go yet.
Yeah.
I also, and this will be interesting from your point of view, because I think certainly when I was in the King's Wings, we travelled 7 months of the year, which I think is probably what you do now.
I think more or less.
And because I was thinking the other day, I started travelling to the US in 1985. Now, I've been to the US over 300 times, or probably, maybe even more. I've spent probably 8 years of my life in the US over a period of 35 years, whatever it is. Will there be a difference the way people feel about travelling? Maybe there will be a different approach to, maybe we won't be able to travel so much, or maybe we'll have to change slightly how we feel about what we're doing in our, close to home.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm thinking about that too.
I am too. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, a lot of people, basically commuting time in one's day is now gone, really. So, and already just speaking to some of my friends, there's this feeling of, wow, there's so much more time in the day. I've got friends who now don't have to get up, they can get up an hour later than they have been doing to go into the office, as it were. And if you take out travel time, there are benefits to the time lost there, or the time made up. But it is an interesting one. I mean, for us, it's worrying because, of course, sort of travel defines our touring life. And so without the travel, there is no touring. But, at the same time, we're trying to be creative, certainly for the time being. We're trying to look into what we can do whilst we're not allowed to travel. For example, it's currently looking like the first, or sort of the gigs that we'll be able to do soonest are likely to be in the UK, because, of course, travel within the UK is likely to be likely to come sooner than international travel for us. And so, it's, maybe we're going to make a sort of more of a resurgence in terms of our UK profile than abroad.
Yes.
There's lots of sort of potentially exciting opportunities to come. But gosh,
yes, because for me, I just look at the way you travel. We travel a lot, but the distances you travel, because actually one of the big areas which has opened up for you is Asia, and also Australia and New Zealand, which of course, we never went to Australia and New Zealand in the 12 years I was in the group. We went to Japan, and we went to Taiwan and Hong Kong, but Asia is, well, as you know, I love it, as of course you do. I love going to Asia, and but that's something that has grown exponentially, really, for the group. And you think, gosh, well, it's a long way. And I look at the way you make those trips, and you do it with such incredible energy, and it's hugely tiring. But it's I think it'll take a bit of time for all that to settle down. I think.
Well, it's interesting. I think, travel, has probably become easier somehow. I don't know if it's to do with the planes these days go faster and make you feel less awful by the time you get to the other destination. But I don't know. I think there is a real excitement. Thinking about Johnny, who's a massive, travel guy, and he loves traveling as much as possible, even during the holidays. Out of interest, with your fascination with Asia, where does that stem from in terms of just kind of Asia as an exotic continent? What is it about it that draws you to it?
Well, it's particularly Japan. As you know, I love the people, and I love the way that they care and respect people. One of the things I think defines something rather beautiful about Japan. I once went swimming in a pool, and I saw a young man teaching an old man to swim. And it was actually one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen, because the way they interacted was so respectful, and they did it with humour. Now, I've done a lot of kind of singing events in Japan where a lot of people come together. And I did one once in Kyoto. Well, I've done it more than once actually, with over 200 older women. So probably the first time, I think the youngest woman there was probably 70. And the energy and the enjoyment and the skill, I mean, incredibly good. They were fantastic singers, but it was just the way that they embraced the now in the way that they worked. And I think my experience with Japanese choirs has been the same. They work incredibly hard, but they have a great sense of the now. And I like that. And I think as performers, that's something, I love that. And I think, as you know, because the recording world has changed so much, live performance has become very important, I think, in people's lives. And I think, you know, groups like the King Singers, who are so successful all over the world, will be one of the kind of groups who will help define that as we move on, because we need it. You know, we need these live events. You know, we go to a lot of events. You know, last year my birthday present from my wife was to go and hear Kylie Minogue at Blair and Palace.
Amazing.
It was brilliant. we loved it. We sat there, or we didn't. We stood there with thousands of people singing these songs at the top of our voice. But it was the sense of community that it brought, and energy. And live performance, I think, is in any field. You go to hear the London Symphony Orchestra, or, you know, I like the Chinese pianist Yu Wang very much. I went to hear her in the festival hall. It was packed, and everyone was really that kind of connective energy was very strong, and I think we need that. And I think you guys, you define that in such a beautiful way, because you have such a very connective relationship with your audience.
Well, it's wonderful to have, you know, often your music at the centre of that in our performances, which, you know, we are fortunate to be able to sing that, your music, with choirs around the world, and that, you know, it's lovely to have that kind of in the family. Really, it makes us feel connected to you wherever we are.
Well, that's lovely you say that. It is all about being connected, isn't it? I think that's why I compose, actually, to be honest. I mean, I've said to a lot of people, if my music is, when I pop my clogs, you know, if nobody sings my music again, that won't bother me. It won't be able to bother me, because I'll be stone dead in the ground. But the important thing about doing music is the now, I think. And, you know, when we did that concert together in New York, which I loved, it was about that, because I remember it was a very, very fine performance of High Flight, I thought, that particular one. And the sense of the now was terrific, and that's one of the things I enjoyed most about being in the King Singers. It was that moment when you're standing there and you're singing, you know, And So It Goes, or a piece by Guerrero, or you feel this, we're doing this now, and it's being received now, and you feel that incredible energy. That for me is my biggest memory of the King Singers, actually, because the group was very good at that, and clearly you still are. You're even better at it now.
Trying our best. I mean, it's interesting. Actually, funnily enough, Vic and I, we've been doing daily yoga, which is the first time I've ever done yoga. And the instructor, you know, would do it on YouTube, on the TV, and in the living room, and the instructor's always, you know, talking about channeling the energy and thinking about connecting with people around the world in a way. And it is funny, because it's making me retrospectively think about some of those KS performances where, because, you know, of course, as a performer, you're always trying your best in each performance to be present and engaging and performative and all that. But sometimes, you know, your mind can drift a little bit. if you're not careful and if you're not disciplined and engaged enough. So, I really like that idea of what you and my yoga instructor are talking about of this connection and being in the present. It's really important.
Yeah. I don't know whether I've enjoyed hugely looking at all the things that people have been doing during this time on YouTube. And one of the things that really I've loved, because I really admire her, the way she speaks out about things that are really important. Nicola Benedetti she's done this series of teaching videos about Saludo More Elgar. And the very first one, she's a great communicator, but it's also about the discipline of practice. And one of the things she talks about is concentration. And of course, as musicians, we need concentrate. I find as a conductor, when I conduct, that element of you have to be in the present to absorb all the things, and you have to be reactive to what's happening. It's the same with when you sing in the group, because the group doesn't have a conductor, so you're all completely interreliant. And that sense of a focus is so important to build as a musician. She articulates it beautifully because she talks about playing something very slowly. And, I find with quite a young daughter who I do piano practice with, trying to get to do that, it's very hard to get that element of discipline, to ingrain that. And I've had to learn that as a musician. And Kingsing has helped me with that big time. And I think it's one reason why I'm so productive actually as a composer, and also why I've got pretty good discipline. It was because you're put in that situation where you have to react in the present and keep the focus.
Yeah.
Because without it, it all falls apart.
Absolutely. I found, in terms of my practice at the moment on the violin, which is been unearthed after a number of years, and violin used to be my main instrument at university, is that I remember, like you were saying with your daughter, my dad used to sit patiently with me while I did very slow, left hand and right hand scales and all that on the piano and violin. And actually it's only now, after having done a number of years with the KS, that I actually crave doing slow practice, because there's nothing more pleasurable than just the simplicity of making just sound with the instrument in tune and sort of going through it methodically and slowly. And yet, when you're a child, it's the last thing you want to do, because time flies so quickly. Bob, that's all we've got time for. I sound like a TV presenter. But I just wanted to say thank you so much for your time and your thoughts. It's always an absolute pleasure to talk to you and learn from you, and hopefully our KS fans and people will enjoy some of our discussion as well.
Well, thank you, Julian. Really good to see you. Keep safe, keep well.
Same to you.
And keep doing that slow practice.
Yeah, I will do. Thank you. All right, take care, Bob. Bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye. Bye.